everyone. You're listening to The Future of Food Is You, a production of the Cherry Bombe Podcast Network. I'm your host, Abena Anim-Somuah, and each week I talk to emerging talents in the food world, and they share what they're up to, as well as their dreams and predictions for what's ahead. I love this new generation of chefs, bakers, and creatives making their way in the world of food, drink, media, and tech. Today's guest is Nadine Ghantous. Nadine is the sous-chef at Rolo's, a popular neighborhood restaurant in Ridgewood, Queens. Nadine and I chat about the Lebanese dishes and CSA farm trips that shaped her childhood, the urban foodscapes that inspired her move to New York City, and her move from front of house to back of house. Stay tuned for our chat. Thank you to Kerrygold for supporting The Future of Food Is You. Kerrygold is the iconic Irish brand famous for its beautiful cheese made with milk from Irish grass-fed cows. It's winter here in New York, and lots of other places, as you know, and I love to brighten the season with my favorite Kerrygold cheeses. Kerrygold's Cashel Blue Farmhouse cheese has become a staple in my salads. The creamy, delicious texture has that distinct blue cheese bite and is the star of my kale and walnut salads. Soup season is also in full swing. Kerrygold has some great recipes on their site, and one I have in frequent rotation is roasted broccoli soup with Kerrygold Dubliner with Irish stout cheese. The sweet and nutty flavor and caramel notes take it to the next level. And then the sandwich of the season, of course, is grilled cheese. Upgrade yours with a Kerrygold Reserve Cheddar, which is sharp, strong, rich, and smooth. For us snackers out there, a personal cheese plate always hits the spot. Kerrygold Skellig, a rich and tangy sweet cheese, pairs perfectly with tart apple slices, your favorite crackers, or a pickle or two. Look for Kerrygold cheese at your favorite supermarket, specialty grocery store, or cheese shop. Visit KerrygoldUSA.com for recipes, product information, and a store locator. The Future of Food Is You is part of the Cherry Bombe Podcast Network, but Cherry Bombe is way more than podcasts. Cherry Bombe also has a quarterly print magazine that's all about spotlighting women in food. This magazine is thick, printed on lush paper, and filled with great photos, recipes, profiles, and features. I have so many memories of flipping through my parents' magazines as a kid, and now I love building my own collection of beautiful print magazines. Cherry Bombe's is one of my personal favorites. Subscribe at cherrybombe.com and get all 4 of this year's magazines delivered directly to your door. All subscribers get free shipping. Visit cherrybombe.com for more or click the link in our show notes. Happy reading! Now, let's check in with today's guest. Nadine, thank you so much for joining us on The Future of Food Is You.
Thanks for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Can you tell us where you grew up and how did food show up in your life?
Yeah. So I grew up in Huntington Valley, PA, a suburb in Northeast Philly. I'm a little bit outside of Center City. And I think food showed up in my life, I guess, in the most memorable way. Just at the dinner table, we were a household of 5. I have 2 siblings. It was imperative to my mom that no matter, who had sports practice at what time or how late my dad was working or what was going on, that we were going to sit down as a family and share a meal at the end of the day. She was, at the time, working part-time as a nurse, and that allowed her to look at the way that we ate as children in such a rounded, holistic way. We belonged to a CSA growing up, which was so cool. I feel so privileged in that sense that we
Very
had
granola.
Yeah, very much so. She would take us to the farm. We would have volunteering days where we would just pick weeds, and at the end of the day the treat was to go pick flowers in the garden space.
Yeah.
Which is just it sounds so picturesque now, but yeah, she really thought, I think, about the plate in such a holistic way and was really intentional about home cooked meals. So we went out to eat every once in a while, but it was really we were going to share a pot of stew or whatever it was that she was making that night. So,
yeah. That's awesome. And so you said your dad's from Lebanon. Were there Lebanese dishes that also made it to the table at the most part, or what was that?
Yes.
How did food show up from a Lebanese perspective?
In a very big way. I think that when my parents first started dating and were getting more serious, there's a funny story that she tells my sister and I that one of the first cookbooks, Lebanese cookbooks that she came across was from one of the doctors that they were working with. They met at the same hospital in New Haven, Connecticut.
Cute.
And this doctor basically was hey, if you're going to date a Lebanese man, you have to learn how to cook Lebanese food, which sounds very old school, but I think she, was well intended. And she gave her this cookbook that was as homey as it gets. It was basically this church in Beirut that came together, and all of these women just like put a bunch of their like
a community cookbook.
Yeah, community
that's
cookbook, like
adorable.
traditional recipes together. And she was like, I would like you to have this cookbook, and I think you'll really enjoy it. And my mom was like, are you sure that you want to give, like, this seems like such a big thing? And she's like, no, take it. I don't use it. And then 2 years later, my mom's one of those people too, when she's like going through a cookbook, she writes in it, she tags the pages, like it becomes a journal almost. So 2 years later, the doctor came back and she was like, I need that book back. I'm so sorry. Like, can I please have it? And my mom was like, are you... Yes, no problem. She was like, no problem. I just have to warn you that, like, you know, I've kind of scuffed it up. She's like, it doesn't matter. Like, can I please have it back? So I was like, no problem. Can you give me a week? And she was like, sure, whatever. My mom photocopied the whole thing and bound it herself.
Wow.
And like made her own copy. So one of our Christmas gifts, I think a year or two ago, was my sister and I received our own photocopied version of her photocopy.
Yeah.
So I think took from that a lot of recipes. And my grandmother would come over from Lebanon after they were married, and she'd spend the summers with us and teach my mom to cook. And she never learned English. Like, she was very adamant about never learning English.
So she spoke Arabic
yeah.
for the most part?
Yeah,
Nice.
exclusively.
And, yeah. Were there like 2 or 3 dishes that made it to the table?
Yeah. So warak anab, which is basically just grape leaves. The way that we do it is like a half beef, half lamb kind of filling with rice and spices. You know, hummus, of course, and tabbouleh. And we had this one dish called mujadra, which is basically just like caramelized onions and stewed lentils, which is just like, it's so homey. But those are the big ones that I remember like always hitting the table.
And so it sounds like, you know, food and medicine seem to play like a pretty big role in your family and end up being a big part of college. So you come to New York to get your master's in nutrition science after being at Syracuse for pre-med. Was there a specific area of nutrition science that you wanted to focus on?
Yeah, I think that I finished my bachelor's degree and I felt really lost. I'm a very stubborn person in some ways, especially with myself and my ideology, I guess. And I thought that medicine was like the only path that I could follow just because of the influence my parents had on my life, I guess. And so I got to the end of my bachelor's and I was like, oh God, I don't want to work in medicine, but I don't know where else to go. And I had really wanted to move to New York because all my friends were moving here.
Naturally.
You know, that's what you want to do when you're young. And I had a minor in nutrition science at Syracuse, and I took a couple classes that just like, it clicked. I was like, this is really cool. Food's really fun. But what was more interesting was like, okay, if I want to move to New York, what does like an urban food space look like? And how does living in one of the biggest, most densely populated cities in the world, like how does that affect the way that people eat? And I was kind of fixated on this idea of combining food science and public health, and kind of started getting into, just as I went through my master's, this idea that nutrition education is not accessible. And it makes me so angry still to this day that, like, you know, food is life. People need proper nutrition to like thrive and survive. And the fact that that is not a part of the way that we interact with our day-to-day from a young age, I think, and like learning how to eat correctly, it's crazy.
Were there any restaurants or coffee shops or cafes that you really started to fall in love with when you first came to the city?
Oh my God, absolutely. There was like a wellness market that I felt really comfortable in, you know, having this background in nutrition and like growing up in a food space where fresh produce was like at the very center, that I would like go and I'd go to their like hot bar and get like whatever, like bean salad. Or they were always doing like very interesting like vegan and vegetarian dishes. Not that I was a vegan or vegetarian, but to make that food taste good, I think is hard, and they did it well.
And so you got your start working in restaurants in New York. What were some of the first places that you worked at, and what were some of the experiences that you kind of took from there?
One of my first restaurant jobs in the city was at Maya Kanji Cafe in Bed-Stuy, and it was in the middle of the pandemic. So I was the only person working the counter just because that was the most safe thing to do. We had like a grocery part, and we did like food prep and sandwiches and kanji. And so I basically like did it all. I was like restocking and organizing the market, and I was making coffee at the same time. And then I was doing food prep for the next day, but also like making kanji bowls and just like getting to know the regulars that would come in every day, which was very fun. And that's where I kind of got dipped my toe into like food prep. And it was such a fun space to work in. Layla, who's the owner, is like one of the most kind and wonderful people that I've ever worked for. And I feel like she creates such a space that's like very familial.
Yeah.
So, you know, we'd finish the day and close up the shop and sit with her daughter, whose name is Maya. And we'd, you know, just talk and have dinner. And like, it was a very, very sweet experience. I think about that time very fondly.
And so you then continued to work in restaurants like much more full scale. You end up at Lillia, which is a gorgeous Italian restaurant in Williamsburg. And you started working as a host for 4 months. What was it like getting the job? And then what was it like becoming a hostess at such a popular restaurant in the city?
It was crazy. Truthfully, when I moved here, I had no idea what the food scene in New York was and how big it was and how influential it was. You know, I had read Kitchen Confidential. I'd like done those, you know, the things that you do when you want to learn about New York dining, but I didn't really understand the influence that I think both Chef Missy and Lillia as an establishment had on like the dining scene. And Michaela and I were living together at the time, and we were living in Williamsburg. We walked by Lillia, and she's like, "Oh, you need a job? Like, you should try to work there. It's like one of the best restaurants in the city." I was like, "All right, Italian food, sure. I don't know. I'll be a host. I've worked as a host my whole life, so sure." I get this job, and the people that I worked with were just like the coolest people I'd ever met in my life. And it was like so funny coming from small restaurants in like the suburbs of Pennsylvania to going to like one of the most popular like casual fine dining places. All of a sudden I'm learning how to like move through a dining room elegantly, and that you're supposed to walk on like one side of the dining room to like create a flow of traffic with other people that are working in the restaurant, and like how it's like this big dance every night, both front of house and back of house. And it has to work totally harmoniously every night for like the dining experience to be what we want it to be, which was so cool. And it was like, I was hooked. I was obsessed. I loved working as a host. It was so fun.
Obviously, no day is the same, but what was like an average shift for you as a hostess? Like, you get to the stand, you're obviously looking at that tab with all the little tabs and numbers and things.
Big puzzle. Yeah, so you get in a little bit earlier and you sit down. It's like, okay, got to go through like the book, which is what we call it. Whether a restaurant uses Resi, Open Table, whatever platform. For us, it was Resi. So we'd...
Or a giant book.
Yeah, or a giant book. Some people still do it, like pen and paper. So yeah, you sit down and you'd like go through the book, and you'd move reservations around on tables in order to create more time for the guest as well as the servers and the kitchen. It's basically a big puzzle of figuring out how to make things flow very efficiently and effectively so that no one notices. It's a subtle art. You want the dining experience to never feel rushed. You don't want it to feel too slow. It's all a big game, and I think that as a host, the part that you play is making sure that both the dining experience that the guest is having and the service that the kitchen is having matches up. So yeah, you can sit down, look at the book, go through the guest list, you know, any notes on people that have maybe come in a bunch of times that are regulars that, you know, we want to make sure feel extra special, or any like friends of the house that we want to like show a good time, and just like what the night's going to look like. Prepare the kitchen. Hey, we're going to have like 30 people sit down at 5 o'clock. It's going to be a pretty big first push. Then we're going to have another big push at 8 o'clock, just so they can kind of mentally prepare for, all right, like, you know, it's a marathon, not a sprint. We're in this for the long haul, you know. We're all just trying to get to the end of the day. That's the goal.
Yeah.
So just kind of facilitating that communication.
That's awesome. And so in this time, you are sneaking in the back of the kitchen. You're getting more eager. What was the push to then start wanting to move back to the back of house and start working in the kitchen? Was there a particular moment or experience you had in being a host and having to communicate that way?
So Lillia has an open kitchen, which I think is so cool. And I would come in every day and, you know, they'd be there in their whites, and like everyone looked like a giant. Like everyone looked like they were like 6'5", and they stood so like picturesque, and they moved so gracefully, and they made it look so easy. And every night I would just like, at one point, you know, you're standing at the host stand, things are slowing down for you, and you look over and it's like the spotlight is on them, and they're like glowing. They're glistening. It's not like they're sweating. They're like glistening.
Wow.
You know? Like,
you definitely have a very rose-colored perspective.
Yeah. I was like, I want to be able to do that. I don't know if I can, but what would it look like? And I think, you know, I'd gotten a little bit of experience with like food prep, and I'd seen like a little bit of what it was like to figure out how to make food taste good in a way that people don't do at home, that I was like, I want to learn like the secrets. I want to be a part of that. It looks like a really cool team. And the cooks that were working at Lillia at the time were so sweet, and they were so cool, and they were so nice. And like, I don't know, you hear all these stories about like cooks and chefs being like, you know, so removed from what you're doing as a front of house worker. And it was not like that. I think the open kitchen really like brought everyone together. And I remember like having a conversation with one of the sous chefs at Missy at the time. and basically being like, yeah, thinking about going to culinary school. Because I just like had the thought one night, why not? What would it look like? And she was like, forget that. She's like, no, you're going to come work for us. We will teach you. No problem. I'm going to talk to chef. You're going to email her. You're going to sit down and talk. And that's exactly what happened. And everyone was like, oh, you want to do this? Let's do it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really impressive. So what did the first couple of, shifts look like for you then? Like, I guess, were you staging at that point, or were you coming in as a prep cook? Like, what was the technicality of that?
It was an interesting way of like moving parts of like leaving the host team, because we wanted to make sure that, that area of the restaurant was covered. So when I made the transition, I went right into, and also I had a conversation with chef where she was like, okay, do you have any experience? I was like, basically not.
Yeah.
I was like, I will do whatever though. I have no problem going wherever you most need me. And she's like, all right, well, let's start with pastry. I was like, okay, I've never baked in my life. And so the first couple of shifts were like 5 a.m. shifts, 12-hour days. Yeah. All right, you're doing it. Like, you want to learn how to make focaccia and donuts and cookies and whatever. We got to get the cafe set up. We need to get dinner service set up. And I was really lucky that the person who was training me had worked in that role for like 5 years. Mm. So she had that down pat. Like, she was an
eternity in food.
Yeah, she was so kind and so patient, because it was a mess. I was like, oh, like, how do I button this coat? Or like, what do I do with my hair? Like, I was so out of my depth, but like, I just kept showing up. And she also kept being like, okay, we got to keep moving. Oh, you don't feel comfortable with that? Well, let's do this. Just every day kind of honing in and continuing to practice and practice and practice.
So, it sounds like you got your start in pastry and like really got to understand the flow of the kitchen, how things worked, the different stations. And then from that, you end up moving to the hotline at Lillia. So the hotline obviously it's got tons of different stations and things happening. What were some of the lessons you took from your time as a pastry cook into the hotline? And then how did that help you adjust the pressures of the kitchen?
Yeah, I think something that you learn very quickly when working in a kitchen in any capacity is that multitasking is like your best friend, but to do it is incredibly hard. And to do it in the right way, again, it's a puzzle. You have to figure it out every day by like messing it up every day and trying something new the next. So I think that really helped me kind of put things in perspective of how to organize like a prep list and how to organize the order of operations that were going to like set me up for success and service. Yeah, I was really lucky to also just have amazing people that were like, let me sit you down and we're going to write minute by minute what my day looks like. Yeah. And then you can try it this way. And then if you don't like that, you can adjust.
I do, we do, you do type thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, again, they were just very patient with me. So I think influential in like who I am now and how I feel like I interact with other people in a kitchen space, because they really took the time to be like, this is going to be overwhelming. You need to keep moving, but like, you're good. Just keep going, keep pushing. We're going to figure this out together. But also at one point, you got to like fly, like, yeah, you got to like just do it yourself. Yeah. And again, mess up time and time again and come back in and do it another way, do it a better way until finally like, look, you're doing it yourself.
Let's take a quick break and we'll be right back. The Cherry Bombe Jubilee Conference is taking place Saturday, April 20th in New York City. It's the largest gathering of women in and around the food, drink, and hospitality space, and an amazing day of conversation and connection. Meet great people, discover the folks behind your favorite brands, and gain wisdom from Jubilee speakers. Tickets are on sale now at cherrybombe.com. If you're an official Cherry Bombe member, be sure to check out the special pricing for members. I'll be at this year's Jubilee, and I would love to see you there. So it sounds like, you want to grow out of Lillia. It got too small for you, pun intended, as intimate as that kitchen is, and you wanted to spend more time understanding other parts of the food world, especially with wood fire cooking. So you move over to Rolo's, where you are now, and which is one of the most popular restaurants in town. I feel like if you are in food, if you know food, you've been to Rolo's and had an incredible experience. What inspired that specific decision to move into that direction of cooking or in restaurants?
Yeah, I think I was at a point where I had been at Lillia as a whole for almost like about 2 years. And I was like, okay, well, I'm doing it. Like I'm showing up and I'm working as a cook every day.
Got your whites on.
Yeah, I was like, I know how to sharpen my knife. I know how to wear the hat. I was like, okay, could I do it at another restaurant? Like, what does it look like to work in another kitchen? Is it the same? Is it different? And like, should I challenge myself to do it again? I was like still finishing up school and I was still kind of deciding of which path to take. Am I going to be a dietitian? Am I going to be a cook? And moving to Rolo's was like, I think, a formative step in being like, this is what I want to do. This is the job that makes me feel the most comfortable. This is what I feel like I'm good at. This is the space that I have been searching for that makes me feel the most me. And Lillia also has a wood fire grill. And I was like, okay, this is so cool and so scary and so intimidating. But like, who else is doing it and in what way? And Rolo's was just, it was a newer restaurant at the time. I went there to solo dine to have the burger. I saw the burger on like an eater list.
Yep.
I was like, wow, that looks good. I went in and got a little salad, a little glass of wine, burger. And like, there was something about being in that dining room that I was like, this place, there's something here.
It's very comforting.
It's very comforting. And like the staff is just like so warm and friendly. I just remember leaving and being like, I have to work there. Like, I have to work there. And I had friends who had moved from Lillia to Rolo's who were working front of house. And I had a couple other people in the industry that their siblings worked there in some capacity. And they connected me to Howard, who is the chef and co-owner.
Very cool.
Yeah. And the rest is kind of history.
Yeah. Well, for our listeners who haven't had a chance to, make the trek to Ridgewood and go to Rolo's, can you tell us a little bit about the restaurant and what the menu is?
Yeah. It's a fun menu. What I've learned most about cooking there and the food that we make is that we really think about the dining experience and the guest experience as a whole in such a way that like the attention to detail is so finite that I don't think that diners understand how much thought goes into the plates that are sitting in front of them because they're so simple. Our beet salad right now is beets, cheese, and like that's it. But the process of getting to that point is so labor intensive.
The specific beet, the specific cheese.
Yes, the way we like cook the beets and peel them and marinate them and like that whole process and figuring out what kind of cheese and do we want it like box grated? Do we want it shaved? Like how does that feel in your mouth? I think it's a perfect example of just like simple food is really hard, but it is very delicious when it's done right.
Yeah. What cuisines inspire the menu? Because it seems like you've got different things on there. You've got a little bit of New American, Mediterranean. What are the sort of pillars or principles that make up a menu? Because your menu also rotates quite frequently as well.
Yes, every season, which is really, I feel very fortunate to work at a restaurant that is always testing and developing and continuously questioning like what could be good and what could be better. So there's a lot of, we have pastas, so there's a lot of Italian influence. I would say that French cuisine is very big as well. Traditional French cooking and techniques and methodologies. Rafik, who is the executive chef and owner, is Dutch and Yemen. So I think that he brings a lot of those techniques as well. And just from like both him and Howard's culinary backgrounds, whether that's at Gramercy Tavern, which is also like New American kind of like, I feel like New American is so funny because it's like, just cook what you want, just cook what's good.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's basically just like, what are we feeling?
Yeah. Can you tell us about your first experiences with wood fire and, how much they helped you grow as a chef?
Yeah. So I initially started working the sauté station at Rolo's, which was pastas, a station that I was very comfortable with coming from Lillia.
So you just, put the pasta into some sort of sauce, or what does sauté station mean?
So basically what's very cool about, we have an open kitchen as well at Rolo's, and the only gas that is on our line is from the fryer. Everything else is wood fire, or we have 2 inductions, which is our sauté station.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's very cool. Yeah, sauté is basically just cooking the 2-3 pastas that were running on the menus at the time. We have like a big pot that we set up as our like pasta tank, build the sauces, pastas in, adjust, season, plate, and then go.
Nice. And it's fresh pasta?
Fresh pasta.
Okay, so that's a quick boil.
Pickup. Yeah, for sure. Everything's got to be quick.
Quick but good.
Yes, exactly. So I moved from the sauté station to oven, which the way that the line is set up there, oven station works the wood fire oven and half of the grill. You're responsible for the fire management within the wood fire oven, and you have to work with the grill station to help maintain as well as share space on the grill. It's a small grill. For the covers that we do, space gets tight sometimes.
Yeah, I know. When you've been there, it's like, it seems like you've got one person like in the
going
wood
in
fire,
the oven,
and then there's like 6 people like hovered, but everything managed to get sent really quickly. Someone's at the pass or the expo.
Yes. It's all about spatial awareness, and I feel like working the oven station, you learn how to move in a way that is like elegant and very nuanced. And like there's no wasted movements. That's how to work the station efficiently. Yeah, because you're standing in the middle of 2 fires that are like both 800 degrees. It's like, it's so incredibly hot. Your whole body composition like changes in the first 2 weeks that you're working with that fire, I swear.
Yeah, it's like body by wood fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, for real. I like don't work out anymore.
Yeah, maybe that's
no need.
Maybe that's the move. Just gotta go out.
Yeah.
What are some of the techniques that like when you first learned were really intimidating, but then with time, you know, started to pick up and get really comfortable with?
Yeah. So there is such a thing as something being too hot. That's what you learn very quickly. You're feeding the fire all night, so you're throwing logs basically into the opening. The cool thing about working in a wood fire oven is that it retains heat scarily well. So you are riding this line of like the size of the log that you're throwing in as the night goes on does matter because you have such a coal bed and such an like built up in a way that the oven like circulates the heat. There's like a domed ceiling to it. And if you're doing it correctly, you won't have to feed it with as many or as big of logs as the night goes on because that heat is circulating in a way which is doing it very evenly. And you can get an even cook off of what you're putting in there without having to manipulate the coal bed or the logs a lot, which is really cool. It's very hard.
So it's like a science and an art, right? Because if you put a big log in there, I guess service is 6-7 hours? Yeah. Something like that. Yeah. So if you're putting like a giant log in there, are you expecting it to be there for like an hour or 2 or like...
You know, they break down faster than you think that they would.
Wow, really?
So you can overheat the oven and like you can figure out a way to like work things out that within like 20 minutes or so, it's broken down. Yeah, there are different ways. I mean, the oven can be too cold sometimes and you can use the paddles in a way to kind of move air under the coals and kind of stoke the coals. We talk a lot about where you build up your coal bed. So if you're staring into the back of like the dome shape of it, I have found that the most efficient way to build a coal bed is putting your logs at from like 12 to 2 because it circulates the air in such a way that just it's such even cooking. It's like crazy. And you know, we've all tried like put it here, put it there.
Yeah.
No, 12 and 2, perfect.
Yeah. That's nice because I feel like, you know, cooking is so much of an art. Obviously, you know, you want your oven or whatever heat method to be as like, you know, streamlined as possible. But it sounds like even with this, it's like an art too. Like I'm sure at cooler times of the year, warmer times of the year, there's also stuff that impacts it.
So different. Yeah.
What are some of the dishes that you're making in the ovens for the most part?
We make our wood fire lasagna, which is like showstopper in the oven, as well as our polenta breads. So those are really the only 2 dishes that are going in there. But they're ordered so frequently and so often that, like, again, space gets tight.
Yeah.
You can also use the heat from the oven in a really interesting way to, you know, warm a plate or cook up a steak if it's a little bit under and you don't want to hit it on the grill again. And yeah, there's a lot of different ways to use that oven particularly. But during service, it's lasagnas and polenta all day. It's just like one after the other after the other.
Love that.
Yeah.
Is there a particular dish that, you know, if you and the other, you know, CDCs or executive chefs were thinking about would make sense to go in the oven?
We talk about it a lot. We actually cook our burger onions in the wood fire oven.
No way.
Yeah, which is very cool because we can do that very passively. Like
and they still get a good like caramelization on them too.
It's slow. It's low and slow, and you still build up that like really smoky caramelized flavor. So we use it a lot during prep. Just start the fire early, build up a coal bed, and you can like put anything in there, and it's like creating such a nice char, such a nice smoky flavor. It's very cool.
So tell us about what recipe development and menu development looks like at Rolo.
Yeah, it's very fun. So as a management team, we come together and we have something called a vision quest. It's basically where no technique, no ingredient, no process is off the table. Come with your ideas. Let's talk about them. As ridiculous, as like labor intensive, as complicated as they are, like all of the ideas that, you know, one person has can spark something else in someone else's mind. It's, you know, all 6 of us sit down. We just talk. It's just like and it spirals in such a crazy way. It's like, okay, terrine. Like, what is a terrine? Okay, like, you know, like, how can we do it in like a sweet way, in a savory way? Chicken liver mousse.
Yeah.
Do people want to eat chicken liver mousse? It's this very, very fun and like no pressure kind of conversation. Like, I think it's funny because like some ingredients, you know, I think when you've worked in the industry for so long, you really don't enjoy using. So I've kind of had to discover like fennel is one that like I've brought to the table a couple times where like it's an expensive ingredient and like
it's bold.
It's bold for sure. But like you learn like all these stories about the chefs that I'm working with and working for, like what does fennel mean to them and what ways have they cooked it? Like why don't they want to work with it again? Or why do they always turn towards duck or batarga, like random ingredients? Like why is that like a go-to? And a lot of times it's like very simple things like lemon, salt, pepper. Like that is like...
You can get a ton of that.
Yeah.
And that flavor profile can also be comfortable with range too. Yeah.
But it's like Vision Quest goes so big. Like it's like, let's start up here, way up here in the clouds.
Yeah.
And then like refine and refine and refine and refine and refine and like test and test and test and mess it up and mess it up and like, oh, this didn't work. Oh, this did. But like, this isn't right. You know, this sauce is like too thin, too thick. Like, how can we like tweak this in a way? Do we want to put it on the grill? Does it need the smokiness? And then we end up with that like final product.
So it sounds like, you know, you've really grown up in restaurants and now you are, you know, a sous chef at Rolo, which is exciting. What are the responsibilities of a sous chef and how do you think about, you know, your role in the kitchen, specifically with like where you've come from and where you hope to go?
Yeah, I mean, being a sous chef is like, it's so crazy to me because I never anticipated on, I don't know, doing this fully in full force. And I feel like I really made the decision in the last 2 years to go for it. But I think being a sous chef, if I could describe it in one word, is like a liaison. You are the connector between, you know, the executive chef, the CDC, and what our goals are, overhead goals, very big goals, and finding a way to like streamline that information for the cooks, for front of house management, front of house staff, for the prep team, for the porters. Like it's really about being, I think, a beacon for people to come to and ask questions all the time. I don't always have the answers, but I think what's really cool about working at Rolo's is that it's like so team-oriented that it's okay if I don't, because someone will. And we've created an environment where you can ask those questions and be like, hey, I'm not really sure, but why don't we go find out together? And then we'll both know. There's no like judgment. There's no like whatever. It's just like we're all trying to be successful and get to where we want to be. And so I think it's just like being a team player.
And how have you found support, not just from, you know, the staff in your kitchen or in front of house, but also staff in like the restaurant community? Because I feel like chefs in New York, it's like a fun little like group where it's like everyone knows everyone, everyone's going to each other's restaurants, everyone's hanging out, that sort of thing. Yeah,
it's like real recognize real, you know? Yeah. Like, it's so cool. But I feel very fortunate that Taylor, who is our CDC, is, I think, one of just the most incredible mentors and has opened up so many conversations with so many people in the industry that he knows and like been like, hey, you should go meet this person or you should go like check in with them and see how their meal's going. I know that they'd love to talk to you because I get really shy very quickly, especially up at the pass. I would rather just like put my head down and focus on, you know, expediting service. But I think he pushes me in a way to be like, open up and look around and be like, hey, this is the Roloverse. Like, be a part of it, you know? Have those conversations.
The Roloverse. I love that. Yeah. So does all the chefs in New York are part of the Roloverse or just Rolo people alone?
I think Rolo's people like coming to Rolo's, but also like we're a very industry-focused restaurant, which I love. Sunday, Monday, like there's always someone from some restaurant sitting at the bar and it, you know, sparks an idea of like, oh, I gotta go visit that restaurant. Like, it sounds so good, whatever. There's always like, I don't know. I think about these two people that come in from, I believe they work at Marlowe & Sons.
Oh, cute.
Yeah.
That's also in Williamsburg.
Yeah. And I love the Tarlo group. Like, I go so crazy for Romans and Achilles Heel. They're like my favorite places to go on my days off, honestly. Because they create such like an environment of, I don't know, just a sense of community of like you can be here and it doesn't need to be a big flashy thing and just come and chill and like listen to good music and eat good food and like just relax, like have a nice time, which I feel like for someone who works in restaurants like every day can be hard going into other restaurant spaces and feeling comfortable doing that. I think that they do that very well. Yeah. And I love that they love coming to Rolo's. I've cooked them a lot of steaks. Like they come in every week, same time, sit down at the bar. I'll always see their ticket come in. I'm like, that's so cool. Like I love that they're regulars here and I love that they love coming here.
How have you found the state of New York City's restaurant culture in terms of like supporting chefs and also just like how consumers are reacting to demand and things like that. Because I feel like, Rolo is also such a popular restaurant.
Yeah.
Their nights is really tricky to get into.
Yes.
And that's, another conversation about the restaurant scene at large right now in New York.
Yeah, totally. I feel like we're in a very interesting time where we're like actively fighting this idea of exclusivity. Rolo's is a neighborhood restaurant. That's what we want to be through and through. And we always want to make sure that we have a seat for everyone. And unfortunately, some nights that can't be the case. It's a big city. It's a big city and everyone's got to eat.
Yeah.
But I think being so young in this industry and still so new at it, I find myself some days fighting this like self-consciousness that I have where I'm like, I don't know a lot. I don't have a lot of like years of experience underneath my belt. Like, who am I to be like standing up at the past telling someone what to do? But at the same time, again, I have these people in my corner, the other sous chefs at the restaurant, Taylor, Rafiq, Howard, who have just created such a safe space for me to like say, I don't know. And so I feel like it's my responsibility to also allow the cooks to say, I don't know, as long as, again, we're like figuring it out together. And I feel very comfortable being like, I'm going to mess this up.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you learned that like from your earlier days at Lillia, just failure is a teacher, if anything.
Yes.
Yeah. And
very much so.
And it seems like you guys have a good feedback culture, a feedback loop where it's like you kind of learn from that. Like as long as you're learning from the failure, then it's okay to fail.
Yeah. It's like, okay, when it's like crunch time, like come on, we got to like do this.
Yeah.
But I think like as long as you come at things with like a humility and an openness, that is what I feel like I'm learning and being taught the most.
Well, obviously, it sounds like you're in the thick of the New York City restaurant culture. I'm curious, when you think about the current state, what are some things that you wish would change, and what are some things that you're hopeful for the future when it comes to the restaurant culture for chefs and obviously as, a customer too?
Yeah, I think that idea of exclusivity is one that we need to move away from. And I don't know if there's an answer to like how to do that at this point. But like TikTok lists of most hard reservations to get in New York, like it's so redundant and truthfully, I think so boring and not what food is about at all. And I don't think what a lot of people are working so hard in this industry to achieve. We're all just trying to cook good food and like trying to hold space for people to be able to enjoy that. And I think that restaurants are trying to move in that direction where that is the focal point, not how many covers can we do and how long is the wait list and who's going to sit at the like whatever. It's not about that. It's just about the food.
Yeah, that's really powerful. And then is there something that you hope will stay?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that I find in my day-to-day that I'm like, this is so cool. And people have been doing this for so long. But I think respect for like tradition in the sense of like the very, very like the foundational techniques with which we cook that are based on. I think that you're seeing like an interesting way of dining out now because we're moving further away from like the fine dining experience. Like that is not an experience that a lot of people are seeking out, at least like my generation, I think. And I think that it's cool that food and restaurants are moving in the direction where those techniques that are used in very, very fine dining establishments are still a part of more casual experiences. I think that is so cool because it's like, again, these things that you wouldn't think about. Picking an herb, you're picking it into an ice cold salad spinner.
Even the tweezers, as much people make fun of them,
They're useful.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
When you think about, the future of restaurants and the culinary community at large, I mean, especially as a woman, it sounds like you've had an overall positive experience. How do you hope that restaurants and in the culinary community at large are spaces that are more comfortable for women, and particularly women of color?
Yeah. We've come a long way, but there's still so much work to do to make a kitchen a very inclusive space. I think that although we're moving in the right direction, I think that it needs to like happen at a faster rate where women feel like they can walk into a kitchen and are not looked at because they are other in any like sense of that word. I think it's just like, hey, we're here to do a job. That is the way that I think about it. I don't show up to work every day and like think about like my womanhood or like, I don't know, my femininity. I'm like, I'm clocking in. I need to butcher fish. I need to do order. I need to do XYZ. Like, I think that there are ways in which we can make that across the board, just like more of a realistic or reality, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that there are so many good people in this industry and like so many people that want other people to win. And so many conversations that are being had about people that don't hold space for everyone.
Yeah.
And I think continuing to have those conversations and being very vocal about it all the time is like what is going to get us there the fastest. And maybe not the easiest, but like the most efficiently.
Yeah, most definitely. And obviously it sounds like, restaurants are being much more supportive of people who aren't coming in with a traditional culinary background or going to culinary school or, again, working in fine dining restaurants.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for anyone who is in that position, has loved food for so long but wants that connection to restaurants and wants to kind of take that leap?
For sure. I mean, just say yes. Just ask questions. Just keep showing up. I think that it only took one person being excited about the fact that I wanted to work in a kitchen as opposed to being like, oh, like you could never. Like, which there is people that do feel that way.
They're just not your people.
Yeah, they're just not my people.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, man. We're all trying to like do something that makes us feel good. So I think that, you don't need to go to culinary school. Just go and start working in a restaurant. Be a prep cook, be a porter, be a front of house server, like be a host, like just become a part of a community that is aiming to do something that you're interested in, put out food that you like, and just say yes. Like whatever questions you have, ask them. Whatever task is being, requested to do, just do it and learn from it. Ask for more. Oh, you need help folding rags? Great. What else can we do after that? Build time to like explore. I think that's like the biggest thing that I learned while like working at Lillia and working at Rolo's. It's like, I want to do my job well, but I also want to do it good enough that I can start looking around and like asking questions.
Yeah, because as small as like a kitchen is, there's still so many different pockets and things that you can explore.
Yeah, it's cool.
Where do you hope to see yourself, in the next 5 years? How do you hope to influence, food as we see it right now?
The future, I feel like I think about it so vaguely, which is like, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
No, you're just getting through the day-to-day. Yeah.
Yeah.
I respect that. I respect that opinion. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just like, again, trying to say yes to all the things that come my way. And so far, my gut's been right about what feels right and what doesn't. But I think in the future, in like 5 years, I would really love to be continuing to be a mentor. Like maybe a little bit more comfortable in that kind of
with the word
ideology. Yeah, because right now it does not feel right. Mentoring, I think still being a liaison in whatever form that takes between the people who choose to work in this industry day in and day out and like advocating for them and trying to create a more balanced space. Because like restaurants they're tough, it's long days and late nights. And I think, like I've always said, people ask me all the time, oh, do you want to open a restaurant? Like, is that what your goal is? And like, it's not necessarily my goal.
But you wouldn't say no if the opportunity struck?
I wouldn't say no, but I also think that more of what I want to do is like, I want to open someone else's restaurant. Like I want to work with someone that inspires me so much that when they are like, hey, I think I want to do this, I'm like, let's do it. Let's go. Whatever you need, however you need me to show up in whatever capacity, I want to like help you bring that goal and that dream to fruition.
Is there a guest or someone that you'd love to try your food at some point? If they walked into Rolo's, you'd be like, oh my gosh, it finally happened. And that day has come.
I don't know. I think there's so many people. What's funny is like the first person that comes to mind is not like a chef necessarily, but
that's okay.
I think about Questlove a lot. And how cool he is and how he has a million different jobs. He does them all well. He loves food. He loves dining out. Like he loves entertaining people. And I think that he has his ear to the ground on some really dope stuff all the time. And I think listening to him talk with people in the industry or just people who enjoy food and eating, he creates such a dialogue with them that is like, it's so just like familiar and like conversational, like very comfortable. And I think if he like came in and like sat at Rolo's, I'd be like, oh my God.
Just hand him a plate of polenta bread. I come in peace.
Please enjoy this.
Yeah. Oh, he definitely will. And I feel like you're so right. He's done so much work with, I know, the Food and Finance High School. He has a lot of initiatives getting younger people into the industry as well. So
very much so. He's like really a part of, I think, a very important conversation that's going on.
Not a chef, but an important food person.
Yeah, definitely.
Nadine, thank you so much for joining us on the show. If we want to support you, where are the best places to find you?
Come to Rolo's. Come say hi if you see me on the pass or wherever. I'm trying to open up the lens more. I'm on Instagram. My handle is Nadine Ghant. It's Ghant. My DMs are open. I have an email, a professional one, which is crazy. I've never had that before, but it's nadineg@rolosnyc.com. I'm trying to be open. I'm trying to like continue the conversation and like see where other people are at. So hit me up. I'm around.
Ah, exciting. Well, yeah, definitely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Before we go, our guest is going to leave a voicemail just talking to themselves 10 years from now. You have reached the Future of Food Is You mailbox. Please leave your message after the beep.
Hey Nadine, 10 years, huh? Have we learned how to slow down? Have we finally let ourselves enjoy success? Are you being kind to yourself? Finally drinking enough water? Please tell me we finally invested in some insoles for your shoes. I can't imagine we'd be anywhere but New York, but I hope you're listening to this and allowing yourself to feel proud of how far we've come. Whether or not we've opened the restaurant, I know the path with which we've chosen is a good one. I hope our community looks the same but different. Bigger and more full of people who love taking care of other people and want to see each other win. I hope you'll listen to this and laugh at how young you sound, how we had no idea what was coming our way, but also how we know in this moment both versions of ourselves are ready for what comes next. Always learning and always growing.
That's it for today's show. I would love for you to leave a rating and review on Apple Podcast or Spotify or wherever you listen to our show. Thank you to Kerry for supporting our show. The Future of Food Is You is a production of the Cherry Bombe Podcast Network. Thanks to the team at CityVox Studios, executive producers Carrie Diamond and Catherine Baker, associate producer Jenna Sadhu, and editorial assistant Londyn Crenshaw. Catch you on the Future Flip!